Good morning and welcome to today's New York City Council hearing for the Committee on General Welfare. At this time, please silence all cell phones and electronic devices to minimize disruptions throughout the hearing. If you have testimony you wish to submit for the record, you may do so via email at testimony@council.nyc.gov. Once again, that is testimony@council.nyc.gov. At any time throughout the hearing, please do not approach the dais. We thank you for your kind cooperation. Chair, we are ready to begin.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's hearing. My name is Diana Ayala, and I am the Deputy Speaker of the New York City Council and the Chair of the General Welfare Committee. Today, we are holding an oversight hearing on the Human Resource Administration Career Services offerings. HRA Career Services offer cash assistance clients opportunities to help them increase their job skills and build a career. Since 2017, Career Services have consisted of three main programs delivered by contracted providers: Career Compass for adult clients, Youth Pathways for clients aged 18 to 24, and Career Advance for clients interested in specific industries or with specific needs, such as limited English proficiency. HRA also matches employers with job seekers through HRA Business Link, partners with CUNY to support HRA clients who are enrolled in CUNY schools, delivers sector-specific workforce development programs in construction, and helps match clients aged 16 to 24 with paid internships in nonprofit organizations throughout the city. According to the most recent mayor's preliminary management report, HRA helped over 9,000 clients obtain employment in fiscal year 2023. As of April 2024, HRA was on track to help over 10,000 clients in fiscal year 24. Beyond this, there is little other available data about efficacy of these programs. Today, we seek to better understand HRA's Career Services program and learn more about the immediate and long-term outcomes that it has achieved over the last 7 years. We also want to delve into HRA's plans for the future and to address the resumption of work requirements for cash assistance clients. Prior to the pandemic, cash assistance clients were required to participate in work-related activities. However, in March 2020, OTDA suspended this requirement given the public health crisis. Advocates have since expressed concerns that the new rules would result in exacerbating existing bureaucratic issues at HRA and in people losing their benefits. It is therefore critical to better understand how career services are administered, the outcomes that HRA has achieved over the last decade, and how the needs of vulnerable New Yorkers can best be met within the framework of any state and federal requirements. I look forward to hearing from the administration and advocates today and gathering feedback on this oversight topic. I would acknowledge my colleagues at this time, but none are here yet, but we will acknowledge them as they trickle in. But I'd also like to thank my committee staff who worked really hard to prepare this hearing: Amenta Kilawan, Senior Legislative Counsel, Nina Rosenberg, Policy Analyst, Julia Haramis, Unit Head, Elizabeth Childers Garcia, Finance Analyst, Andrea Skoll, Data Analyst, and finally my staff, Elsie Encarnacion, Chief of Staff. I would now like to turn it over to our policy analyst to swear in members of the administration.
Okay, thanks very much. Administrator French, please raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee and to respond honestly to council member questions?
I do.
Thank you very much. You can begin when you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Deputy Speaker Ayala. My name is Scott French, and I serve as the Administrator of the Human Resources Administration, HRA, within the Department of Social Services, DSS. I would like to thank the committee for the opportunity to testify today on the topic of HRA's career services. While we have faced challenging times in recent years, we are very proud of the work we are doing to connect low-income New Yorkers to a diverse array of workforce development services to further clients' education, training, and employment goals. Career services are an on-ramp to sustainability and independence for New Yorkers. We understand the job search process can be challenging, and as a city, we want to serve as a strong partner in helping New Yorkers achieve career success. Career services encompasses the kind of career guidance and coaching any job seeker might need. That includes exploring career goals, connecting to educational and training opportunities, building professional skills, and serving as a partner in job placement. HRA's career services are a key support in connecting New Yorkers on cash assistance with opportunities to secure steady income and live sustainable lives. While I will be speaking to HRA's career services, I want to note that HRA's offerings exist within a broader network of workforce development programs New York City provides, including offerings led by the Department of Small Business Services, SBS, the Department of Youth and Community Development, DYCD, the New York City Housing Authority, NYCHA, and the Mayor's Office of Talent and Workforce Development. Under the leadership of Mayor Adams, we continually work to break down silos and build networks across government and across our communities to connect New Yorkers to the career services they deserve. Working with the HRA, career services providers use their expertise to equip job seekers with the tools they need to build skills and experience to remain engaged in what can be a daunting job search process. By offering wraparound support services, HRA and our provider partners work to assist our clients, whatever an individual's starting point. I would like to spend some time walking through some of the career services available to our clients. Career Pathways is a suite of service programs that provides orientation, intake, assessment, engagement services, job development, placement, and retention services. Career Pathways has 3 components. Career Compass works with adult clients to assess their skills and experience. It helps clients find employment, training, education programs, internships, and community service opportunities that suit their abilities and goals. Career Advance offers career education and training services in specific New York City industries and neighborhoods, or to groups such as those with limited English proficiency, individuals who are involved with the criminal justice system, homeless households, survivors of domestic violence, or older adults. Youth Pathways works with clients ages 18 to 24 to assess their skills and experience. It provides career, education, and training services and helps clients connect to programs including internships and community service tailored to the needs of younger adults. Note that the new iteration of the Career Pathways program will be the Pathways to Access to Careers and Employment, PACE, Workforce Development Program, which I will speak further about in a moment. Business Link matches diverse employers with job seekers through targeted outreach and skills assessment. Business Link hosts job fairs throughout the year and offers access to job openings through alerts by text messages through Text to Work. The Pathways to Industrial and Construction Careers, known as PINC program, is a key initiative arising from the U.S. Economic Development Administration's Good Jobs Challenge within the American Rescue Plan of 2021. This program bridges the gap between employers seeking a diverse workforce and the public systems seeking to place high-need, disadvantaged populations in career track positions within the construction and industrial transportation sectors. Jobs Plus is a place-based employment program administered by HRA for residents in 40 New York City Housing Authority developments or within proximity of the developments throughout the 5 boroughs. Job Plus programs help residents build skills and connect to the labor market to increase their incomes and financial security. Jobs Plus programs are located within the developments they serve or within walking distance. CUNY EDGE, otherwise known as Educate, Develop, Graduate, Empower, is a joint program between HRA and CUNY designed to help HRA clients enrolled at CUNY schools with academic counseling, support, and employment services so they can succeed in their studies and graduate in a timely manner. Alternative Engagement Programs, known as AE, assist clients interested in high-demand skills-based training in the fastest-growing occupations, such as green jobs, technology-based jobs, careers in the medical field, and much more. Many of our training providers have employment linkages as well. Finally, the Wellness Comprehensive Assessment, Rehabilitation, and Employment Program, otherwise known as WeCare, provides comprehensive services to assist HRA cash assistance clients with medical, physical, and/or mental health conditions that impact their ability to obtain employment. Our goal is to help clients achieve self-sufficiency through personalized assessments, rehabilitative support, and employment services. Having provided that overview of career services available to our clients, I will now turn to recent RFPs and the underlying thought processes we are bringing to the future of HRA's delivery of career services. HRA succeeds when we connect clients with the long-term financial stability and security that employment provides. Building on years of experience working to further hone our career services offerings and building upon concept papers that included engagement with experts, providers, and the communities we serve, HRA recently released an RFP in August 2024 with an anticipated contract start date of July 2025 for the PACE program, and we will shortly be releasing another RFP for the WeCare program. Key concepts undergird HRA's career services model and inform our strategy in developing these RFPs. Both programs focus on client-centered assessment. That means assessments that identify client needs and interests and counseling tools to meet clients where they are. Client-centered assessment connects with the concept of progressively improving workforce development practices. That means including an understanding that additional education and training may be the best pathway for a client to meet their goals. GED, ESL, training, vocational, or apprenticeship programs may serve as a pathway into the career a client may have in mind. In authoring the RFPs, HRA acts as a catalyst to strengthen the network of career service providers to include community-based organizations and local small business partners. That is a step towards a neighborhood-centered model, allowing clients to receive services and supports within their communities. Strengthening the network of vendors also includes serving as a convener and platform for sharing best practices amongst vendors. A final key concept included in our RFPs is a holistic understanding of client needs. Through strategic program operation target goals, SPOT goals, we gain a clearer picture of client advancement by taking into account areas beyond employment, like educational and financial counseling. In addition, HRA intentionally shifted towards a one-door program model in the PACE Workforce Development Program. This model unifies the previously separate programs of Career Compass, Career Advance, and Youth Pathways, with the advantage of reducing referrals from one program to the next. I turn now to the larger legal and regulatory framework in which HRA operates and the impacts on the return to mandatory engagement. HRA operates in a legal and regulatory framework that obligates us to adhere to an extensive body of federal and New York State laws, rules, and regulations. In addition to the oversight at the city level, the New York State Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance, OTDA, oversees our operations and provides directives. That serves as important context for the return to mandatory engagement and the imposition of sanctions on clients who do not meet federal and state standards for engagement. During the COVID-19 pandemic, this mandatory engagement was paused. The federal and state government determined the timeline for lifting this pause. Alongside other localities, HRA was directed by New York State to resume sanctioning clients who do not participate in mandatory engagement. That said, over time, HRA has been a strong voice in seeking and obtaining a broader understanding of the rubric of mandatory work engagement to include training, education, apprenticeships, and other programs. In implementing return to mandatory, we have focused on ensuring clients are not surprised by the end of the pause, communicating with clients ahead of time about the reimposition of engagement requirements and the potential sanctions we would be required by law to impose. Furthermore, within the sanction process, we offer opportunities for individuals to come into compliance with the requirements, or alternatively, clients may supply an explanation of the factors that prevent their meeting the work requirements under cash assistance programming. HRA is also leveraging city contracting dollars to help secure employment for clients receiving cash assistance through Hire NYC Human Services. In brief, Hire NYC Human Services, administered by BusinessLink, requires contracted providers to hire a certain number of cash assistance recipients based upon overall contract value. The program requires providers to work for at least 20 hours per week, paying at least the mandated minimum wage, and work being for at least 1 year. HRA also defines best efforts on providers' part that ensures a provider that genuinely submitted job postings, interviewed candidates, and constructively engaged with BusinessLink on interviews can have that work taken into account to seek a modification or waiver of an unmet cash assistance client hiring requirement. Hire NYC succeeds in connecting cash assistance clients with career opportunities. When comparing the year-over-year number of cash assistance clients receiving employment through Hire NYC, that figure has grown from more than 2,300 hires in FY21 to over 8,000 hires in FY24, representing a historic high for this program. Expanding our optic to include the broader work BusinessLink pursues to match employers with job seekers, for FY24 there were nearly 10,000 job placements through BusinessLink programs. I will close where I begin. We understand job search anxiety. The search for the next step in one's career can be daunting. We understand that job seeking is a process that includes the morale of the job seeker and building the skills and resilience necessary to overcome the challenges posed by a potentially very stressful process. Our message to job seekers is there is a universe of city workforce development and career service programs, including HRA and our partners at SBS, DYCD, NYCHA, the Mayor's Office of Talent and Workforce Development, community partners, and many others. Collectively, we stand ready to assist job-seeking New Yorkers. On behalf of HRA, our partners in government, and our dedicated provider networks, I want to highlight that the array of help and supports to any feeling discouraged, help is available. While what we speak to here today will necessarily focus on HRA and primarily cash assistance clients-focused offerings, as a city, we seek to be strong partners in connecting New Yorkers to employment. As HRA's fiscal year 2024 successes in connecting clients to employment demonstrate, we have made important strides forward. With the RFPs I have outlined, we lay out a pathway for building on that success. I want to reassure the Council that, alongside our partners, HRA will continue to work to help overcome the obstacles New Yorkers face to achieving greater sustainability, independence, and career success. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I welcome your questions.
Sorry, just making sure my phone is off. I want to acknowledge council members Aviles and Caban have joined us. Thank you for your testimony. This is actually one of my favorite hearings because it touches on something that is really important to me. When I was a younger parent of two, I had dropped out of school and I hadn't finished high school, and a friend of mine had gone to Bronx Community College, and she made it sound so interesting that I was like, you know, maybe I want to go back to school. And so it encouraged me to go and get my GED. And so I went at night school to Bronx Community College, and it was there that I met what was, I guess, that iteration of the CUNY Educate Development Program. And they made the offer for parents that were single parents primarily on public assistance that would like to further their education to come and meet with them. And I took them up on that opportunity, and I'm sitting here before you as a success story, right, of that program. And I have always advocated for that level of programming to exist, specifically for, you know, young women like myself, right, who found myself in a position where I needed kind of that hand-holding that the program provided. So I'm excited to hear about, you know, how it's advanced in all of these years. My 5-year-old is now 34, so you've had quite a number of years to perfect it. So I'm hoping that we've made some advances since then. But I'll start my questioning with the RFP. So the original RFP for the career services contracts included a performance-based contract structure in which contractors were paid based on client outcomes. Do you know the current the current contracts in place to keep providers from working only? No, I'm sorry, I read that wrong. Do the current contracts use a performance-based contracting structure? And were there any safeguards in place to keep providers from working only with clients with fewer barriers to work, who were more likely to reach a higher value of outcomes?
Sure, thank you for the question. So during the pandemic, we did not do performance-based contracts. We did cost-based reimbursement. So we did not hold providers to the performance-based measures that were in the contracts, because at that point also all engagement in career services was completely voluntary because the mandatory engagement requirements were waived at that point by the state and federal government. So while we encouraged the providers to engage as many clients as possible, we did not institute the performance-based payments at that point and reimbursed them for their actual costs. We are in the process during this last sort of year of the contracts of reinstituting some aspects of the performance-based. We're still finalizing that plan. It's not something that we're just gonna resume 100% of what it was, right? We're very close to having a sort of ramp up, ramp down plan for that. But until that's instituted as well, all providers will be on a cost reimbursement basis.
Okay. And were there any safeguards in place to keep providers from working with only certain clients?
No, we, made sure that all of our clients were aware of the offerings, and, our providers are required to engage and work with any cash assistance clients that presents themselves wanting to receive services.
Okay, so can you explain what those safeguards are?
So, if we hear of providers rejecting clients who we refer the clients to the providers, so the providers need to receive the clients that we refer to them. They can't reject clients unless they come back, say, and we referred someone to a career services provider, and say during their assessment they said it appears this individual has some more barriers to employment and they might be better served by WeCare. We would then re-refer that client to a WeCare provider, but the providers need to serve those clients. We have not heard of any instances where clients would refuse to serve them, and given that the performance-based reimbursements were paused during this period of time, there wouldn't have been an incentive for anyone to not serve clients that we had referred to them. Obviously, if someone has heard otherwise, we would want to hear that, but I have not had anything reported to me where providers refuse to serve cash assistance clients we refer to them.
Okay. Yeah. When the web program was available, I know that, folks ended up everywhere, and so there wasn't any skill building ability, really. So I would love to, because again, this is new terrain for me. How is it different than it was back then? So back then, if I remember correctly, through the web program, you had to work 4 days, and then on the 5th day, you did some sort of training.
Yes.
One of my concerns were, for instance, as an example, we had a gentleman that worked at one of our senior centers that had muscular dystrophy, was it? I think it was. He had a disability, and it was really hard for him. He was assigned to the kitchen, right? And so he had to work with knives. He had to work, with equipment that he really couldn't work with. He should never have been sent there in the first place. He should have been, at some point throughout the screening process, somebody should have picked up, right, that his disability probably afforded him the possibility of being approved for SSI or for other benefits that would have been better suited for him. How do you ensure that that doesn't happen now? And is the process similar to what it used to be?
No, we did away with WEP in the prior administration.
No, I know the WEP is no longer around.
Right. Commissioner Banks felt very strongly, similar to you, that was not a program that was actually benefiting cash assistance clients and giving them access to experience, education that will help someone define what they want to do in their future. So in that place, we put a strong primacy on internships. We created an internship placement service contract that is specifically about developing internships across the city with nonprofit organizations and others that actually provide a well-rounded experience for individuals, and then we will connect individuals with specific interests to internships that were developed for that specific interest, whether it's a nonprofit that's focused on healthcare or serving children or other types of things. So all of our providers are very much held to the expectation that the experiences that they develop need to be a well-rounded experience that is very different from WEP. Additionally, yes, through the assessment process, it sounds like that individual, right, should have been connected to WeCare, right, where he could have been assessed on are there other services that could have supported him better, or if truly he would best be served through SSI, WeCare would have helped him submit an application to SSI and go through that process and program. So that's what we're really focused on at this point, and that's what we've put into place, and we'll further sort of emphasize in the new round of contracts that will be coming in a year.
Okay. Can you tell us how long the contract terms are typically?
Typically, they are 3 years with a 3-year option for extension. The current contracts, I believe, will be a little over that, as we needed to do an extension on those contracts while we procured the new PACE program and the WeCare program. But typically, they're a 3-year contract with a 3-year potential of a 3-year extension.
So the last one would have been 3 years ago?
No, it would have been in 2016, 17. It was the last contracts were procured under the prior administration. That was the original sort of shift to a career pathways approach for HRA.
And
We
when
can
do-
get back to you with the specific dates of
Yeah.
when the contract.
And when do you expect to issue a new one?
The new contracts, we anticipate the new PACE program and week care programs to start next July 1st, 2025.
Okay. Will future RFPs use the same program model? And if not, what do you expect may change?
Sure. So we always want to build upon our program models and build upon the lessons that we've learned to incorporate improvements to the program, but also change things that maybe created unintended challenges for individuals. So the prior contracts that were awarded, there were 27 individual contracts between Career Compass, Career Advance, and Youth Pathways. The thought process behind that at the time was wanting to make sure we had a lot of specialized services. An unintended consequence of that was there were a lot of referrals and a lot of expectation on clients having to go from one provider to another. That created some challenges around engagement. And so through sort of looking at what happens, talking to the providers who also provided these services, as well as clients, we determined that a one-door model would be a better way to serve clients and creating a real foundation and sort of home base for individuals in the career services program. So we anticipate 9 contracts in the new, where an individual will be connected to a provider who will be their sort of like foundational, and then that provider is responsible for creating the relationships and the partnerships with education and training providers, developing employment opportunities with employers, and really being the person that helps each individual work through the system and work through the plan that's specifically tailored to them. So that's one of the things that we've implemented. Additionally, you know, we're further even going to look at a whole of person approach, especially as it relates to the assessments. In the past, right, assessments may have really just focused on more of a quick attachment to work approach as to what type of employment are you ready for now. We believe that long-term success is really about understanding the whole experience of a person, right? What has sort of brought them to where they are with us today? What are their particular interests, needs? Where may there be some gaps that would best serve them? As I said in my testimony, where might actually more education and training actually better serve someone in their initial connection to us that will really set them up to be able to secure a sustainable job in the future. So that is another thing that we're really, you know, taking into account and implementing even further. And then lastly, really bringing a hybrid approach, right? COVID really made us quickly adapt to how can we provide services that aren't in person, which was very much the pre-COVID way in which people engaged with HRA services. You know, we realized that we could actually really provide services that were beneficial to individuals and actually helped also encourage further engagement by utilizing a hybrid model, which we will further incorporate into the new programs. We also think it's a really great way to mirror what actually the current workforce environment is for individuals. So for people who maybe haven't been in the workforce, having to engage with us both through an in-person, you come sometimes, and sometimes you do something online from your home, really will also build the skills of what it may be like to engage in the workforce, where many of us also operate from a hybrid model. So we think that's extremely important for us to implement as well moving forward.
Perfect. Yes, yes. Go ahead.
Hi, just a quick point of clarification. You noted 27 contracts across several different programs and a one-door model saying 9 contracts. So is this all consolidated? Are you cutting contracts? 27 to 9 is a very significant
So,
difference. Can you explain that?
Sure. So, I mean, first and foremost, it was really in response to what we were hearing from clients and providers, right? That they were being asked to move from one provider to another, which initially we wanted to have things very specialized. But we ultimately learned through that actually created a barrier for them, which is why we consolidated the entry. As part of the contracts, there is a very strong focus on and expectation and requirement that the providers who are selective have strong subcontracts with providers in their communities, so with educational, training, and other providers and employers, so that it's not just one organization someone will be dealing with, but one organization will be responsible for helping facilitate that individual's specific plan and what they're looking to explore, and making sure they have those connections, and also be the place where the person can go if they're having challenges of they have set staff that they've created those relationships with that they can go back to and can help them sort of navigate any challenges that may come up. So that's the thought process behind it. Obviously, as we implement things, we will be paying close attention as well to make sure that there aren't unintended consequences behind this that we would want to adjust for.
So I think I'm hearing rejiggering of process and entry point, but I guess looking at such a significant decrease in the contract, the immediate thing is capacity, and everyone is over capacity at this point in their service provision. So I guess the red flag for me that I'm not entirely understanding, and maybe this will be clearer, is ensuring that there is no cut in services as a result of rejiggering, no cut in funding, but really just improving what's there and doing better.
There's not a cut in funding, there's not a cut in services. In fact, I think by consolidating some of these services, it will allow us to ensure that as much of the funding as possible is going actually to support services and isn't necessarily being distributed, say, for a variety of overhead and other types of things that, right, maybe we're not actually, right, in the current contracts. It will allow us to really focus on the amount of money that will be going to support individuals' engagement with service provision and help to be more efficient from a administrative and overhead cost expense.
Great. Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is it possible that groups may not receive their full contract amount based on performance targets?
In theory, yes, but we, just like we don't want to punitively harm cash assistance clients who's having challenge engagement, we also don't want to take punitive action against providers. So we work very closely with providers around performance targets and what they are not meeting, and definitely want to understand what the challenges might be and where can we help mitigate, if they're facing some types of things. So, it is not something we want to do or, would do without having exhausted every other possible option to try to address what might have been a challenge the provider was experiencing.
Can you tell us a little bit about what performance metrics are part of these contracts and how often HRA receives progress reports from the providers?
Sure. So performance contracts, there's a variety of different measures, and the new contracts will have them as well, that really focus on a variety of different things. Some of them are, how many assessments did you complete, right? Other sort of process measures to ensure that clients who are referred to them, right, are provided the services we expect. There are other measures where we're tracking how many people are enrolled and engaged in education and training, and then completion rates, numbers of people connected to employment, salaries around employment, and retention rates around employment in regards to, are people still employed 30 days later, 60 days, 90 days, 180 days. So those are the types of measures that we implement and we track. And we, track ongoing quality assurance, quality control is part of our daily operations, and we meet with our providers regularly. We want to make sure that we have a very strong feedback loop from them because they are on the ground and on the front lines, so that they can let us know where there may be some challenges in the sectors that we maybe aren't aware of initially, so we can sort of address any issues that we need to address when it comes to performance measures and challenges they may be having.
Okay. Can you walk us through the current career services model? Like, for instance, what happens after a client enrolls, and how are they assessed and matched to either a work experience, training, or other employment support?
Certainly. So after a client, applies or recertifies for cash assistance, as part of that, they have an interview, right? In the interview, we conduct what's called an employment plan, which assesses if someone is employable, and if they have any barriers to employment, or if they would have engagement requirements. Based upon the outcome of that, They currently would be referred to either a Career Compass provider that is located near their residence, or in the terms of youth, to a Youth Pathways provider. When they go to that provider, the provider will provide them with first an orientation to all of the services that are offered, right? And then they will conduct an assessment that looks at both the individual's skills, their experience, but more importantly, look at what are the individual's goals and aspirations, what are their career interests, right? And based upon sort of all of that, they'll develop collaboratively a plan for that individual. So for someone who, say, didn't graduate high school and is like, the first thing I want to do is graduate high school, it would be about connecting them to a GED program that meets, right, what they need. Similarly, if someone, say, needed an ESL class, or someone was interested in a vocational training, they would connect them to that. For individuals who come in and say, I really want to be connected to employment, right? I know exactly what I want to do. Then they would connect them to those either through themselves or to our Business Link program, right, which also has a whole array of employment opportunities. And so individuals would then be assigned to their engagement, which has certain hourly requirements that would be tracked on an ongoing weekly basis, right? And then the provider would be, following up with them. For some individuals, they would be referred from Career Compass to Career Advance. Say they wanted to look and work in a specific industry, and there's an advanced provider who works in that industry, they would be transferred to them to be connected to their services and supports. And then the providers would ongoingly track an individual's engagement. If there seems to be some challenges with an individual engaging, they would proactively reach out to them to try to understand what's going on, if there's a short-term barrier that's presented itself or some other thing that is causing it difficult for the person to engage, to try to remediate that. And then ongoing, there would be periodic check-ins and tracking of progress. That's sort of general. Obviously, each individual situation would be somewhat different.
It's pretty extensive. Councilmember Caban has a question, but we've also been joined by Councilmember Ressler.
Thank you. Good morning. I want to focus my questions on GMHC's HASA workforce program. And just for the record, I want to give a little bit of background before I ask my questions. So, as you know, since 2014, GMHC's RISE program has helped around 674 clients find employment by providing culturally competent and individualized assistance, resume building, vocational training, internships, employment, benefits counseling, job placement, retention assistance for unemployed and underemployed workers, like the list goes on. And in fiscal 2025, the prelim plan, HRA eliminated the RISE contract as part of the agency's PEG plan in response to the mayor's budget reduction mandate. The elimination generated over $284,000 in quote-unquote savings starting in fiscal 2025, although we can argue what those cuts do in the longer term in terms of the effects in the community. And the agency indicated that clients would continue to be served by other employment programs. So these are my questions. At the fiscal 2025 exec budget hearing, HRA indicated that the agency was in discussion with GMHC regarding the ramp down of the RISE program, and indicated that the conversations included how clients who were still required employment services would be connected with other existing HRA employment programs. So it's been 4 months since that hearing. Obviously, what I'd like to hear is an update. Have you identified which other programs will provide those specialized services to those clients that were in the RISE program? And also for the clients that were enrolled in RISE as of June 30th, 2024, when that contract ended, which specific programs were they transferred to and when? How many clients were transferred? For those who were not transferred, why not?
Sure, thank you for the question. As we discussed as well during the budget hearings, there were some difficult decisions we had to make, and this decision was not a comment on the benefit and the services that GMHC provided, but as an agency, we had to make some challenging decisions across all of our programs, and unfortunately, this was one of those. All of the individuals who were engaged with RISE, right, are current active HASA clients, so they remain HASA clients where they have their case managers who are responsible for periodically checking in with individuals to make sure, to check with them on anything that they may need. For clients actively engaged in RISE, they were transferred to the HASA Vocational Rehabilitation Program that we have, which is a small program within HASA, facilitated by city workers, that offers computer training, assistance with work readiness, and
And
job
that was that every single client? Every
Yes,
single
there were
existing client?
at the end of the program. Based on the data I have, there were 16 individuals actively engaged with the program. All 16 were transferred to the vocational rehab program. Of those 16, 8 people were actively employed, so they needed retention services that we are providing them. The other 8 were engaged around what their specific interests were. I don't have specifics on the 8. We could follow up on that if you would like.
The clients that were transferred, the HASA program that they were transferred to, is that a HASA program designed specifically for the LGBTQIA+ community?
It's designed specifically for individuals with HIV and AIDS, which would include individuals, right, for the LGBTQI+ community, not solely just for that, right? It is available to any HASA client who would like to avail themselves of it. It's not specific in that way, but all of the services and the expectations are that, right, services are provided in a culturally competent
And what's the
manner.
makeup of the employees of that particular HASA program in terms of the folks who are working and are part of that community, whether it's at the intersection of the HIV/AIDS community or the queer community?
I'll have to get back to you on those specifics. I don't have those offhand in regards to those specific staff members.
And then I just have one other follow-up. As was discussed in fiscal 2025 exec budget hearing, the GMHC, the community that they serve, obviously often has a mistrust in government and health-related service delivery due to the challenges that they've experienced, again, at the intersection of their identities and their health needs. So I know you said that obviously that it's geared towards folks with HIV and AIDS, where they were transferred to, but can you talk more about the customized approach to provide those services to this particular population that was previously being served by GMHC?
So all of our services in our HASA, all services through HASA need to be developed through an individualized approach, right? And our case managers, as well as those working in the vocational program, are trained to be able to approach things similarly to the career services program from a whole of person approach. So that means including the intersection of someone's identities. So it's really about understanding what individuals are interested in and then being able to connect them to those services that best meet their needs. I don't have specifics on each of these individuals. Again, I'm happy to get some more information and follow up with you. But all of our services are meant to, engage folks in that way. While we did have to cut this program from GMHC, right, we did retain and keep a program with them around financial management, which does serve, similar clients as those in the RISE program. I know it's not the same, but I did want to just.
And I understand what you're saying, and I just kind of want to offer a broad statement to kind of make a point. Like I understand the intention to have a individualized, customized approach for every person, and that is what professionals do in different settings. And we can endeavor to do that, but I do think that we have to acknowledge that there is a difference when, let's say I'm going to give a personal example. I'm seeking therapy services, right? Presumably, a whole host of organizations or clinics are going to say, hey, we do an individualized approach, and we come as you are, and we can do that. But there's a reason why I then do the extra work to say, actually, no, I need to find a therapist who is a woman of color, who is queer identifying or specializes in that work, or has spent a significant amount of time focusing their practice on particular kinds of trauma histories. And so I think we can endeavor to do that, and that's great, and it's the baseline, but I think we do have to acknowledge that there is a difference between some of these really, really targeted organizations and service providers. And I'll leave it at that, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We've also been joined by Councilmember Banks. Okay. I'm going to move on to the employment services contract area. There is 128 million budgeted in fiscal year 2025 for the Employment Services Contract Program area, of which 126.7 million is budgeted for contractual services, which includes 62 contracts for employment services. What is the budgeted funding for employment services contracts in fiscal year 26 and in the out years? If the budget is declining, why is the budget declining?
So I'll have to get back to you specifically on FY26. There is no intention of a budget declining for the employment services contracts. But we can get back to you with specific figures that were included in the projections. I just don't have that.
Okay, we were referring to the OMB documents for funding for this program, which was at 120.2 million in fiscal year 26, 118.5 in 27, and 117.5 in 28.
I will have to get back to you on that specifics.
Okay, and then are all 62 contracts for direct employment services for HRA clients?
They are not all exclusively for HRA clients. They all can serve them, but there are, the career services and We Care contracts are for individuals on cash assistance who have engagement requirements. There are other programs that we offer that serve HRA clients and other low-income populations. So the Jobs Plus programs at NYCHA is for low-income individuals. You don't have to be on cash assistance to participate in those programs. The PINK program that I mentioned is for individuals 18 and older at or below 300% of the federal poverty level. Obviously, we focus on cash assistance clients, SNAP recipients, Medicaid recipients, but those programs are not exclusively just for those individuals. So there are some programs that are for a broader population of low-income New Yorkers.
Okay, and for direct employment service contracts, who are the contracted providers and what employment services and programs do they provide?
It's a large list, so we are happy to follow up with a list of the providers in which services and their contract values.
Sorry, I have a question from someone. Does the release of the RFP require any changes to what is budgeted, and if so, what and when will they be made?
I'm not sure I 100% understand in regards to the contract values. So the final contract values are still being determined. We have estimated values for each of the service areas, which are the boroughs, that are listed in the RFP. So that is what we are currently providing for career services, but the final contract values will ultimately for each provider depend on their proposal, and the outcomes through the negotiations, but the overall amounts in the RFP are what we are going to be awarding.
Thank you. Councilmember Ung just joined us virtually. Happy birthday, Sandra. So moving on to the controller's audit, can you tell us what does HRA plan to do to achieve its own retention rate of 80% at 180-day mark of a client's employment, and participants of career pathways? Well, I'll answer that one first, and then we'll get to the other one.
Sure. So within our contracts, we have, now that we have shifted back to mandatory engagement, so I think one of the things to understand is that, within the audit, that was during voluntary engagement, which is a very different experience in time and isn't really comparable to, say, what happened in 2019, which also won't be comparable to what's happening now as we ramp up mandatory engagement and the process, versus where we'll be from a year from now. So I just want to sort of give some context there within the overall audit and the numbers that were being referred to, and the marks that were met. But, we track with our providers on a monthly basis where, we are making placements and how that is tracking against sort of overall goals that we have. And so as that sort of happens over time, if we see areas where things are going to start to lag or specific providers that maybe are having challenges, we'll meet specifically with them to understand what's going on and determine what might be some intervention measures that could be, whether it's something we could do or something we could do in partnership with, say, one of our sister agencies like SBS and Workforce One centers. So, it's part of the ongoing quality assurance and quality control measures we have, where we're measuring our, progress to our goals. And if it looks like we aren't on track, we then sort of look specifically at what's not working or what might be causing that and adjust as possible, right? Or take into account maybe there's been a change in the workforce environment in a particular sector. That means it's not sort of operating the same way it had been, which means we should adjust what we think our goals may be.
Councilmember Ressler has a question.
Thank you so much, Deputy Speaker and Chair. We're very lucky to have you at the helm of this committee. And it's good to see you, Administrator French.
Likewise.
Is that what I'm supposed to call you?
We've known each other very long.
Okay,
It can be
Scott's
Scott.
okay?
Yeah,
All right, great.
Scott's good.
Scott, it's good to see you, and really happy that you're in this role, and also just want to take a moment to congratulate Jamar behind you on his promotion, which is well-deserved and a really good thing for the Department of Social Services. Just have a few questions. I wanted to just start with one of my favorite workforce development programs and just get a little bit of a status update on how Jobs Plus is doing. How many NYCHA developments is Jobs Plus currently in?
It serves 40 developments across 11 contracts. So,
And has there been any increase in the Adams administration in the number of developments that we're serving or the number of people we're serving?
it has remained consistent, but there has not been an increase or expansion at this point.
And is that something that you think would be merited?
I think that we look at Jobs Plus on an ongoing basis. We're currently looking at the model, as will be, there will be an RFP in a couple of years. So we're currently assessing how it's operating and if there are ways in which we can be more efficient or more effective. At that point, right now, we are looking at it within the current funding that we have.
Well, I certainly think when we have successful workforce development models that are reaching NYCHA tenants and connecting them to good jobs, we've got to maximize them. And this is one that works. There are others, resident training academies, that I also am a big fan of, that I just think we should be pumping a whole lot more resources in because that's where they're needed. Several months ago, DSS celebrated kind of clearing of the backlog of food stamps and cash assistant cases. It was all very good news. Could you just give us a status update? Have we maintained that clearance of the backlog, or has a backlog grown since that announcement? I think it was May or June. I don't recall exactly when the mayor did it.
We continue to maintain on a monthly basis, right? We still are experiencing very high volumes, which speaks to the need that's existing, right, in the communities. But like we did to eradicating the backlog, we continue to focus on the different pillars that we were working on then. So hiring, right, we are very much focused on making sure that we are replacing staff as they leave so that we can retain the hiring progress that we made over the last year, where we brought on 1,000 new staff. Additionally, we continue to look at different ways in which there are efficiencies in the process that we can implement both on our own or in partnership with OTDA to make the process first and foremost easier for individuals coming to us, looking for help and support, but also from a processing point of view, minimizing those. So we track it on a monthly basis to make sure that we remain on track while meeting the increased demand that is still out there in the community.
So very happy to hear that you've been able to, with some increased staffing and other approaches and effective management, maintain the cleared backlog. What I have found really troubling is that, pre-pandemic, January 2020, it was about a 5% rejection rate on cash assistance applications based on the data that I was reviewing. And as of this past summer, or at least summer of 23, we were upwards of close to a 45% denial rate on cash assistance applications. So that is almost a tenfold increase in denials. And with the reinstitution of work requirements as of this summer, I'm very concerned about the combination of increased bureaucratic hurdles and complications that are leading to almost half of cash assistance applicants getting denied, with the additional responsibilities now of the work requirements potentially having the impact of increasing those denials to even higher rates. And these are the folks in New York City who need our help the most. And I have long admired HRA and their operational skills as an agency, and I'm happy that you're at the helm. But I'm very, very concerned about these trends. And seeing nearly half of cash assistance applications get rejected, and now we're adding additional hoops that people need to jump through with work requirements, I'm concerned that this is going to lead to an even higher rate of denials, and potentially people then losing their food stamps, losing housing subsidies, and other things that they desperately, desperately need. And so, a few questions there. One, were you required by the feds to reinstitute these work requirements as of July of this year, or was that a choice that HRA decided to make, or the state or feds, or was that at your discretion? Secondly, since this was implemented 6 weeks ago, have you noted any increase in rejections of cash assistance applications? Has there been any fluctuation in the denial rate? And thirdly, are you concerned, as a thoughtful and compassionate government leader, that this is going to lead to further denials of cash assistance applications and further kind of erode people's access to the benefits that they depend on?
Certainly, thank you for the question. So first, we were ordered by the states and federal government to reinstitute mandatory engagement and the sanction process. We delayed it as long as we could, and we also did it in a tiered approach. So we implemented mandatory engagement in, say, October or November, where we just started to reintroduce the concept to individuals, especially to those who are completely new to cash assistance, who have never had to engage with what do you mean a work requirement and an engagement requirement is. And so we started that process to really educate folks, and we only just restarted the sanction process on August the 19th. So that period in between, there wasn't negative implications on folks if they didn't engage with mandatory engagement, but we really wanted it to be that place where we're not catching people off guard and we're explaining to them, this is actually a value and a benefit to you, this is meant to help you, and not meant to be punitive. So in that way, I will say that. And then in regards to denial rates, I think one of the challenges, or one of the drivers behind the increase in the percentage that I think Commissioner Park has also spoken to, is there are also a lot more people applying to cash assistance than did before. We've made it much easier, which we are very happy about, to apply for cash assistance. You can do it 24/7 from your home, from a phone, from a computer, which we have seen as record high numbers of applications. Increased applications doesn't necessarily mean that's increased number of people who are actually ultimately eligible for the benefit. But I hear you, and we certainly don't want to be negatively denying individuals who are eligible. I will say, seeing that the cash assistance caseload does continue to increase month over month, I feel like that is a counter to say that we are still finding individuals who are eligible for cash assistance and they are entering the caseload. But we obviously don't want any unintended consequences on increasing denials. Since the imposition of sanctions, we have not seen an increase in denials in that way. We probably wouldn't see an engagement in that way because the sanction process would only happen once you've actually been accepted onto cash assistance. But we have also, to your second point around imposing this, will that mean more people are then ultimately denied or taken off cash assistance? The administration, going back to the prior administration as well, worked very hard on expanding how we look at mandatory engagement, what is eligible for that, and then the process by which we go through sanctioning someone. And I would say we have an extensive process that is really focused on engaging someone in services we think are beneficial to them, and only in the most extreme situations actually sanctioning someone's case. So it takes approximately 8 weeks or more from when someone, say, doesn't comply with an engagement requirement until we would actually start imposing a sanction on someone's case. And in that period of time, we have extensive outreach and engagement with individuals to make sure, A, they understand what are your responsibilities as part of cash assistance? What does this mean, right? How do you have to be connected? Has something changed since we initially assessed you that leads to you having a barrier to being able to engage so that we can reassess that? And so we do that first through our providers who proactively outreach to individuals assigned to their services who do not show up for the services they need to engage in. We give that a couple of weeks where it's just about the provider. And then the agency and agency staff also start to communicate with individuals through mailings, text messages, emails, meetings that outlines multiple times, here are the requirements and here's how you're not meeting those requirements. Is there some reason that you're not able to meet these requirements at that time? And if there is, say, an imminent short-term issue that comes up, someone broke their leg, they're not able to transport to somewhere, right? We then take action to make sure someone isn't negatively impacted. So we've really put in places where someone can also cure any issue immediately. We, in the prior administration, advocated for, and ultimately we were able to get non-durational sanctions impacted for New York City. This is not how it is across the rest of the state, which means someone can cure their issue immediately and resume their benefits, especially for cash assistance. SNAP, depending on the situation, does still have some durational benefits because it's run by the federal government, but we've implemented a lot of different ways to try to avoid this. And I will say, prior to COVID, 2019 was probably the first full year where this process was in, and very, very few people who entered the process ultimately ended up being sanctioned.
That is all very helpful. I will say, in the conversations we have with constituents who are applying and with advocates, we have concerns about the increased denial rate and technology and bureaucracy and challenges that folks are facing that have led to, I think, increased and unfair denials. Appreciate the caseload has increased, appreciate there are a lot of good and smart policies in place, and yet the massive increase in denials, nearly tenfold, is concerning. And so I would love to drill down further on that with you and your team. I want to be mindful of the Deputy Speaker's time and generosity in letting me speak. I just would love to ask one parochial question in conclusion. We had a tragic issue yesterday at the Schermerhorn site where a fight broke out, led to a stabbing on the corner. I've been told the person is okay. We just, I assume it was in reaction to that tragedy that some of the operations internally were modified. But, we had people out in line outdoors for over a block and a half yesterday until 5 o'clock at night, until the end of the day for 8 hours, 7-8 hours. And we often have extremely long lines at the Schermerhorn site. And I reach out to you when it's really hot. I reach out to you when it's really cold. I continue to hope that there are operational improvements that you all can identify. I'd be happy to come on a tour. I've been inside the site many times, but it's been probably a decade. So I'd be happy to see if there's any ideas we can come up with together to try and provide people with a more customer-friendly experience rather than waiting on the street for hours on end. And relatedly, I know that there was a plan in the previous administration to shutter some of the downtown Brooklyn HRA sites, and there's shifting of where services are being provided. I would really love to get a briefing on the timeline of those plans and which sites are being activated when and which sites are closing when. Is that something that we could set up with somebody on your team?
Yeah, I'm happy to follow up with you both on a visit to the site to walk through it and talk about it, as well as the longer-term plans. We will.
Thank you. I would really appreciate it. Thank you very much, Scott, and thank you very much, Chair. I really appreciate the time.
Thank you. He loves this stuff. I actually had a question. I wanted to go back to the Jobs Plus program, because you noted here that there are, the HRA is administering 40, I guess, New York City housing developments within the proximity of a development. But were there any cuts to Jobs Plus this fiscal year? Because I remember,
Yes.
I know in mine,
Yes,
cut.
yes. So the program serves 40 developments. Yes, there were 2 contracts as part of the overall PEG plan that we discussed that we ultimately had to end. What I can say on both of those is The provider in East Harlem continues to provide services in the community through other funding that they had to individuals they were engaging. It's not a Jobs Plus program, so I'm not going to
HRA-funded programs?
pretend that it is. It was other employment funding programs that they.
If you're not
that they
funding
had.
them, how do you know?
Because that's what they've been reporting to us, and I double-checked this morning with my team. Are they still providing services? And they indicated that they were. And then the South Bronx location, the provider there actually inherited a different South Bronx contract because a provider chose not to continue on, and they are serving both that catchment area as well as their original area within that contract. So they have continued services to both of those South Bronx communities.
I find it really ironic that the only two that were cut were in my district, but I'll leave it at that. So were there 42 locations and now we're down to 40, or are we down to 38?
Let me follow up with you on that. I know currently it is serving 40 developments, but some providers serve multiple developments, so I want to be specific on what were the numbers and what is the numbers now to account for what these two contracts that we were just talking about.
I mean, I appreciate the concept, you know.
It was 44 developments, and now it is 40.
Okay, so there were four that were cut then.
4 developments were impacted by the two contracts.
By the two contracts?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's right, because they had expanded to, in East Harlem as well, to Clinton and, I don't remember, it was Johnston. Okay, now I lost my track of thought, but, you know, the jobs, one of the things that I really appreciated, I appreciate about the Jobs Plus program is that they actually follow up with the individuals for way over a year. Now, HRA opts to do, I guess, through your contracts is 6 months?
The retention that we look at is up to 6 months, and the providers, right, are need to be tracking that, and also, you know, individuals can come back to the providers if they need additional assistance, but it's not for as long and constant contact as with Jobs Plus, correct?
And what is the percentage of participants that remain employed 6 months out?
I'll have to get back to you on that because 2019 would be the most appropriate numbers because we don't have, I think, we need a little bit more time to be able to develop some numbers for what we're seeing now, which I'm anticipating may look different. But I'm happy to also keep you updated as we develop more data and really understand what the trends are and where it looks like we're going. But if you would like, we can follow up with 2019 numbers. It will just be from a different sort of place and time and approach to the services because during COVID years, it was all voluntary, so it wouldn't represent really the programs as they were intended given it was voluntary engagement.
Okay. You said, believe you mentioned that there's going to be a new RFP for the Jobs Plus program?
In a couple of years. We're just starting to talk about it right now, but we like to think in advance of when the current round of contracts will be renewed. So.
Has there been any consideration to changing the terms? I mean, I know that they're very specific to NYCHA and to a specific development, which becomes a little bit of a hindrance because if you're a young person, for instance, and you live at one development and now you're traveling to another development, there may be a problem, right? We've seen that, you know, people are discouraged from participating in activities at other developments because they may not feel, you know, safe, specifically in the youth population. So that's one of that's something that I would, you know, reconsider as really the placement of those sites. See, in the East Harlem part and even in the South Bronx, we were very lucky that those places were kind of neutral, and so it didn't matter where you came from. You know, you could feel free to walk in any day, but that's not always the case. And then two, the types of employment opportunities that are being afforded to folks. Sometimes there are instances where the Jobs Plus program has a connection to some sort of training, maybe security trainings or I don't know. But for the most part, folks are being directed into retail or, you know, minimum wage jobs, right? And that's not gonna allow, especially, you know, with the expenses in this city, for folks to gain that level of independence that we're looking for. And so I wonder if there's been any thought to kind of ramping up a little bit of what it is that they're offering at the Jobs Plus program, so that we're offering skills, an opportunity to develop those skills in a way that is realistic, but also allows folks an entry into middle-class jobs, right? Connecting them to city jobs. We have an abundance of jobs that are available. I mean, are we connecting folks? These are the same agencies, right? Like, are we connecting folks to those job opportunities? Are we training them? In East Harlem, we had a program called Strive. And at some point, they worked with one of our nonprofits, Union Settlement Association, and they created this partnership with Mount Sinai Hospital. And so Mount Sinai Hospital would say, well, we need phlebotomists. And so they would train the phlebotomists, and then Mount Sinai will hire them. And those type of partnerships are more in line with what I think, right, these opportunities should look like. It's not so much as, it isn't just about getting somebody a job, right? But we're looking for self-sufficiency, right? We're looking to ensure that people are able to stay in the city, that are able to pay rent and still be able to put food on the table. And that's very difficult when you're making, minimum wage. And so I would love to see some diversity there in terms of the types of jobs that are offered and the types of training opportunities as well. Because I think that, you have a lot of entrepreneurs, people that, are working from home, baking cakes that they could be selling at La Marqueta, that they could be working, you could be working with EDC to try to identify low-cost space, so that they can begin their small businesses. We have organizations. So I think that there has to be there are I agree that there are way too many contracts, and it makes it very difficult to do an adequate assessment. Even for me, I'm like still confused about all of this because there's just so much to look at. It's distracting. But I think when you start to consolidate, it should help alleviate some of that, because then those partnerships are a little bit, they're stronger.
Yep.
And we know where they exist and where those opportunities exist. But I just, one of the points of contention that I have is really the type of jobs that we are, prioritizing for Black and brown folks, right? We there's no shame in any job, but we also have skill sets, right, that allow us an opportunity to work, in spaces where we haven't been allowed or don't know how to get into. And so it's important that those opportunities are also a part of the equation. And maybe that should be first, right? They should have first dibs to those jobs. At least, I'm not saying that you're mandated to give anybody a job, but they should at least have first dibs at applying for and being considered should they have the qualifications. And if they don't, maybe that's a pipeline, right, that we need to create, is a pipeline to those jobs, so that we're creating that self-sufficiency that we're looking for.
Right. And we definitely agree. I just want to say, I think with everything you say, and that really does inform all that we're doing, and it is about finding good jobs and connecting people to good jobs that also have career paths to them, right? Just like all of us, we have jobs, and then we look to see what might be next, and we want to make sure, you're right, individuals on cash assistance have the same access to those jobs, right? They have the same goals, same interests, same futures that they want to look at. So we are very much focused on that, which I think we're doing through the PINK program, right, where we've created a lot of relationships with local unions, right, which is one pathway also into really good jobs, union jobs, other types of things, as well as looking at ways in which we can retain people and recruit people into, city jobs. I know HRA, as part of Jobs NYC and just the work of Business Link, we are constantly reaching out to cash assistance clients and others about vacancies that we have, right, working in benefits in my agency as well as other agencies. So we agree with you. Very happy to also, take any thoughts and recommendations you have, but from a perspective of what we think the goal needs to be, we are definitely aligned as to where we need to be going.
Is there a list of industries that are of interest to HRA and when you're contracting with these organizations?
Yes, we can provide, right, depending on programs, we look at different things, but, there's some programs that focus on, say, green jobs or technology jobs, but then for the PINK program, we're looking at industrial, construction, and transportation, and sort of breaking down those barriers of how does one enter into that, right? How does one get into a training program that will connect you then to a job where you can then sort of go up the ladder of experience, and providing wraparound supports to help people manage and facilitate that process. So those are some of the few things, but happy to follow up with the variety of different sectors and things that we're looking at and relationships we've created.
Okay. And how soon after an individual is linked to a job do they lose their benefits?
So it will depend on how much the job pays. So that impact will be different depending. For cash assistance clients, right, there is a 6-month earned income disregard that is up to 200% of the federal poverty level, if I'm remembering that correctly. I know there is interest in advocating at the state level to see if that could be increased. But for individuals who secure jobs who would still be at or below 200 of the federal poverty level, they would remain on cash assistance for 6 months. So there would be a ramp down period of understanding, right? In 6 months, this part of your income, right, will be reduced, but it allows a period of time for them to adjust to what does it mean for full-time employment, right? What are some of the other things I need to put in place? For other individuals who get higher paying jobs, the change could be quicker, right? Depending on how much they are actually making. So it would vary depending on that, but we definitely try to look at, right, the benefits cliff, as people say, and other things that would impact people, and through our services really provide people with services and understandings around, like, what does it mean to transition to employment? What does it mean to transition off benefits? Which can be challenging depending on how much experience someone has or has not had with the workforce.
Is there any assistance in terms of transportation costs and childcare?
Yes, so for cash assistance clients, there is, for those eligible, for those people who leave the caseload, there is 12 months of additional childcare that is offered to individuals, which is a great help, right? And some other individuals do receive some short-term transportation assistance as they transition.
Short-term meaning what?
Metro cards.
But a month?
I think it's.
How short-term is short-term?
I think it's about a month for folks.
Okay, see, that's something that Jobs Plus does better. If you bring your paycheck stub, your pay stub, they'll give you a Metro card for the month. And so, I mean, transportation is expensive in New York City.
Yes.
Right? It doesn't matter how you
That's why it's important everyone knows about Fairfax.
how you get into work. But that also leads back to my first concern, right, about the type of jobs that we're connecting folks to. Because the idea is not to connect the person to a job and then they still qualify for Medicaid and food stamps, right? That's not success to me. And it means that we're paying for it twice. When we could, do it properly the first time by, taking time to educate folks, give them the option to go back to school, provide them with the level of trainings that they need, and then connect them to, higher wage employment opportunities. That's to me what, that's the goal, right?
Yes.
That should be the goal.
Yes. And HRA has advocated for that for the last many years, often getting the state to expand their requirements, especially around education, which used to be very limited, which has more options now for individuals, and making it clear that training and education are the foundation for some people to connecting to sustainable employment, and that engaging in that should be considered an equivalent activity as someone who gets a job.
Yeah. No, it's not easy out here in these streets. Okay, so I just have a couple of questions regarding the career service programs. HRA introduced the Pathways to Industrial and Construction Careers program to support workforce development in the local buildings and construction and transportation, distribution, and logistics industries. Is HRA considering similar programs for other industries? If so, which industries, and what is the projected timeline for such program?
So currently we are in the midst of implementing the PINK program. The model itself we think is a strong model and is something for us to look at in other ways, right? There isn't right now other industries we are currently expanding to, but we are learning from this implementation as to how you really do create those relationships from the training providers to apprenticeships or say unions to actual employers, and how do you create pathways that are sort of seamless for individuals where they can enter it and they continue on a path that ultimately results in employment. So while we're still implementing that program, we are definitely seeing the model itself as something that is very effective, and we think we're actually also creating really strong partnerships with, other stakeholders who are essential to the success of a program like that, say it's the unions or other large-scale employers to the value, which then we will look in the future to leverage to create similar programs in other industries.
Okay. Do we know how many clients HRA refers to other agencies for workforce development opportunities like Parks Department or?
Some of them I would be able to know, right, in regards to Parks Department, right, and the Parks JTP program that's now being facilitated by Parks. We do ongoing referrals, so that is something we could probably get back to you for. Other referrals, right, we may not have those numbers, say someone who's going to a Workforce One center, or we've just made them aware of other options in the communities to them. So there are some where we have more formalized partnerships. We have those. Others, we may not have that exact data, but I can say under the Adams administration and the Office of Talent and Workforce Development, all of the different agencies that work in the workforce development space work very collaboratively together. There are constant sort of meetings and connections between us all to make sure we understand each other's programs and then leverage what someone else may do better than you do, right? So I always say HRAs, our programs aren't meant to be a silo of the only program. There are certain things we provide that are really important and essential, and then we should know where someone else maybe is more successful in something else and make that connection for someone, so they're being able to access the best that is out there.
Yeah. Oh, maybe also helping to advocate for more programs like the Parks Opportunity Program in other agencies, right? Other models that are similar in nature. I love that program because I think that it allows that level, that initial hand-holding period that a lot of first-time employees, right, need. Younger employees, old people that haven't had employment in a really long time. It helps build self-esteem, and also it helps breaks barriers to these opportunities, because there are barriers that still exist.
Right.
We have all of these available positions throughout the city, and yet folks apply and are not necessarily getting in. Right, the application process is it gets complicated. Getting places is difficult. Just too many inconveniences. I think that we should be looked at and eradicated, because the goal here is to try to make everybody make things as simple as possible. And you guys have done a really good job of that, and I want to thank you. I think in hearing a lot of this, I'm excited about the opportunities that exist for HRA clients. I would love to see that expanded, and I would love to be able to see how, again, we could work with other city agencies to kind of help build that support system that you need, right? Because we all need to kind of be working together on this. But can you tell us how many of these jobs, how many cash assistance clients has HRA placed into jobs through the Business Link, and how many of those jobs have been sustained for 6 months or more?
So I can say for Business Link, we just announced yesterday that for FY24, almost 10,000 individuals were connected to jobs through the Business Link programs, which is the highest since COVID numbers that have gone through Business Link. As I mentioned, the higher NYC Human Services saw an overall high of over 8,100 cash assistance clients connected to jobs with providers who have contracts with the city in human services, which is the largest number it's ever been. Those are numbers that we can say. As it relates to retention data, we don't track that retention data. We don't have that necessarily because many of these people who do get jobs then go off of cash assistance, and so we don't have a way to track them in that manner.
Do we know how many clients are currently enrolled in the CUNY Edge program?
Yes. So for the beginning of the fall 2024 semester, there were 265 enrollments, but that number is expected to increase quite a bit as the semester begins and even more people are engaged and outreached about the program and what it really offers them. I can say that since January 2024 for CUNY Edge, the enrollment has been 1,319. And then since spring 2020, CUNY Edge students have earned a total of 5,336 degrees. That's 2,421 associate degrees and 2,915 bachelor's degrees.
Can you repeat that?
Sure.
How many associates?
2,421, and then 2,915 bachelors.
That's great.
Yep.
I was going to ask whether these are associates or bachelor's degrees. That's wonderful. I'm so excited about that. That was a really good program.
It's
really,
an
really
excellent
good
program, and we're very proud of it. We're very proud of our relationship with CUNY, and we think it really does. Similar to how other job experiences allow people, give them support to sort of acclimate to the workplace, this also is hugely helpful and supportive of individuals to help them understand how they sort of maintain education as well as whatever else might be going on in their lives, and that knowing they have this place to go to seek support to help them navigate through it and stay with their education is really essential and something we're very proud of.
No, absolutely. Are all of these schools tied to, I mean, I'm assuming that most of them are to childcare services?
Yeah, their child care supports are offered through CUNY Edge, as well as transportation reports, which also is connected into someone's cash assistance case, right? So individuals on cash assistance, right, who have a child care need, we will provide them with child care, and so we coordinate that through and with their schedule with CUNY and provide those services to individuals.
That's perfect. Yeah, the one that I went to was at Bronx Community, and they had a daycare. So I had two children at the time. One was going into kindergarten, the other one was going into what would be now pre-K, 3K, and I was able to get them in. So they had an elementary school on campus, which was perfect because I would go in, I would drop off the kids and go to school, and we would all be in school the whole day, and then we would go home at 3 o'clock and, come back again the following day. But it really gave me the peace of mind, to be able to focus specifically on the schooling and not have to worry about, traveling and, who's going to take care of the kids today. And, everything was squared away. It was part of like a package deal, and it worked seamlessly. I don't know why, I had never heard of it before. But I'm really proud of the fact that we have that. The Work Progress Program assists nonprofit organizations to provide beneficial internship opportunities to low-income young adults in all 5 boroughs of New York City. How many nonprofit organizations are current WPP providers, and how many young people are placed in WPP internships annually?
Sure. So currently there are 55 nonprofit organizations that have expressed interest in participating in WPP for FY25, and on average, WPP serves 1,455 young adults annually.
That's great. Okay. Moving on to career services outcome. I'm sorry, I'm asking a whole bunch of questions because there's a lot that we didn't know, and I want to just make sure that we get you on record on some of these. HRA holds contracts with the nonprofits to deliver 3 career programs: Youth Pathways, Career Compass, and Career Advance. For each of these programs, how many unique clients are served per month, and how many annually? And currently, how many clients are enrolled in each of these programs?
Sure. So we can provide you historical data if you would like. It would be from 2019, because that would be the last year where there was actually, services were operating in their sort of full capacity. So if that would be helpful to you, we could, but for years during the COVID, those numbers wouldn't be representative of the program. But we can provide 2019 data that we have on the list of these questions that you have here, if that would be helpful to you.
Yes. Do you have the list?
Yeah, I have the list of questions from you, yes. So
Okay,
we know
great.
what
Yes,
you've
if you
asked,
could
and so
get
we can follow up with what we have in regards to those specific questions for the data we have pre-COVID.
That's awesome. And does HRA usually publish the outcomes of the data?
There are certain outcomes that we do publish. I'll have to double check what that was, given we haven't really been publishing things recently, given that we haven't been in the mandatory engagement. But I know there are reports that we do publish publicly that does give insight into what is happening in the system.
Okay. Let me just make sure I didn't forget anything.
Of course.
Okay. You're off the hook. I wanted to acknowledge that Councilmember Stevens is here. Did you have any questions?
That's it, but I need like 2 minutes.
Oh, she needs like 2 minutes, so, yeah. If you could give us 1 second, I'll find one.
We can wait 2 minutes.
Hold her off.
Hi, good afternoon
Hello.
or morning. Oh, it's still morning. I just had a couple of questions. As you know, I'm the chair of Children and Youth Services, and one of the things I'm always trying to think about is like, how is the city reimagining workforce for young people? And I see that you guys do work with DYCD. So could you talk a little bit about that partnership, what that looks like, and how do you think HRA can play a role in this reimagining workforce development for young people in the city?
Sure. So we work closely with DOICD along with other, workforce development partners in regards to first and foremost making sure that we are very aware of the services and programs they offer. There is a little difference in regards to HRA's Youth Pathways program is specifically for individuals on cash assistance, so it is part of a requirement that is there. But we make sure that all of our providers are aware of DOICD programs that may be activities or engagement that an individual would want to participate in. And so
But even with you, because I know you're saying like a lot of your programs are different because there's folks who are on cash assistance.
Right.
But even with that, like I think there's a real connection because a lot of the young people we serve, families are on cash assistance. And so one of the things that I've been doing a lot of pushback on the DYCD side is like, how are we surveying that and really looking at this more holistically instead of like in pockets? And so I think that that's where I'm trying to get more around, like, how are you guys holistically working together to see like, all right, well, what families are getting this work? And also like, how are we creating a pathway to workforce development? So I'm just trying to think more holistically of like how you guys are working in interaction.
So I would say what we are looking at right now and really focusing on as we sort of shift in the next year to a new set of contracts is looking how we can more systemically create those connections with DOICD around the services that they have and create those avenues and leveraging the strengths that we all have to better serve families and young adults. So I would say one of the things we are looking at and would love to talk more about, right, your thoughts as well, is, how can we more sort of formalize some of those relationships? We definitely have referral partnerships, right? And we work closely on overall city initiatives, but would definitely be interested in making sure we...
I would absolutely love to be a part of those conversations. This is something that I've been like yelling about for the last 3 years. And also just thinking about, even the young people that we're serving in our programs, like if there's a way for us to connect the services, right? A lot of times they need, whether it's cash assistance, because they don't just serve young people, right? Even when you think about like SYEP, we have young people who are up to 24 there. So like some of them are on cash assistance during the regular year because that's the only way that they're able to have means. So how are we then connecting the services, making sure the providers are all on the same page? So please count me in for us to talk and work together because like I said, we're at a place where we need to reimagine the workforce for young people in New York City, and I think this is a good place that we can start.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to piggyback off of that, I think, one of the reasons why I was so upset about the loss of the Jobs Plus programs is that I thought, it was a missed opportunity because of the high rate of, youth-on-youth violence and unemployment, right? The correlation between violence and, poverty is real. And we, I think missed an opportunity to really help address that. And I hope that, through the new RFP processes, you're rethinking that you're looking at the data so that, these programs continue to exist in communities that really need them, but then also not make them as restrictive so that, there is a little bit of flexibility because we have a lot of young people in the community that would love to be able to walk into a Jobs Plus program, but maybe live across the street from a night job. And, I think, after a while, you've already hit the whole development. Like you can't, what else is there to do? So we're kind of setting them up for failure, right? They'll be successful for a couple of years, but then they'll have no one else to talk to because they've already spoken to everybody. You can.
No, I was just gonna add, just even with that, when you think about the impact of NYCHA, right? Like, we can't just say we're gonna have a concentration of NYCHA because it's a community. So we have to think about this in a holistic way of, like, if you're serving NYCHA and you're not serving the folks that's outside NYCHA, that's still gonna affect the residents of NYCHA, right? So, because that's all gonna bleed into it. And so I just wanted to support what you're saying just around, it's important for us to think about how do we look at this in a holistic way and look at it more community opposed to thinking about a development.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I would also love to see more around, you know, programming around young mothers that offer, you know, a more comprehensive level of support. We have a lot of students here today. Hi, young people. We're talking about young people. But it's really it's important, you know, that, you know, because sometimes we're starting from zero, right? We don't have that foundation.
Yep.
And that was true for me and even for my children. And I see the difference in the generation. I'm like, these kids are a little bit more privileged. They don't really understand, right? And I remember when my mother used to say to us, like, you don't understand. We used to have to walk to school 100 miles, no shoes. But, you know, it's true, right? It shifts. But, you know, seeing them struggle, you know, even with their privilege, to find, you know, employment. And, you know, mom can't really help too much, right? I end up in the New York Post. But they, you know, it's really important for me to kind of witness that firsthand, because then it allows me to see kind of where the gaps are. You know, specifically speaking for single mothers that are struggling in my community, I see a lot of need in that area. And I also see and, you know, really want to highlight the need for employment resources and opportunities for young people who may not want to go to college, right? Who maybe that's not an option for, who maybe dropped out of high school and are, you know, hopefully none of you are dropping out of high school, but, you know, are kind of in that in-between space, right? Where they're trying to figure out who they are as adults, right? What the next phase of their life is going to look like. And I really did, you know, enjoy that linkage between the Mount Sinai and the Strives, right? Where, you know, you're building a workforce field. Right now, we have a huge need for social workers. You know, we have a huge need for mental health providers. Who are better advocates for these resources, right? And when you're talking about, you know, making sure that they are culturally relevant, right? That we're meeting people where they are. So, you know, just a little bit of, you know, food for thought, and, you know, hopefully we can turn some of these ideas into something great. But thank you so much for being here today. We really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you so much for bringing attention to it, and I do look forward to continuing to talk and work with you on how we can continue to provide the best services
Thank
to New
you.
Yorkers.
We'll bring you back when you have more
Absolutely.
information.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Okay. All right. All right, I now want to open the hearing for public testimony. I remind members of the public that this is a government proceeding and that the quorum shall be observed at all times. As such, members of the public shall remain silent at all times. The witness table is reserved for people who wish to testify. No video recording or photography is allowed from the witness table. Further, members of the public may not present audio or video recordings as testimony, but may submit transcripts of such recordings to the Sergeant of Arms for inclusion in the hearing record. If you wish to speak at today's hearing, please fill out an appearance card with the Sergeant of Arms and wait to be recognized. When recognized, you will have 2 minutes to speak on today's hearing topic, hunger and food insecurity. And I think this is wrong, right? Sorry, wrong topic. HRA Career Services. If you have a written statement or additional written testimony that you wish to submit for the record, please provide a copy of the testimony to the Sergeant of Arms. You may also email written testimony to testimony@council.nyc.gov within 72 hours of this hearing. Audio and video recordings will not be accepted. First panel will be Meryl Cordova, who's joining us virtually.
Your time has begun.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Meryl Cordova, and I'm the Vice President for Workforce Services at NADAP. I want to thank the committee for the opportunity to testify today. Founded in 1971, NADAP is a not-for-profit organization that focuses and helps approximately 35,000 New Yorkers, both adult and youth, across all 5 boroughs and Long Island. The central focus of our work is helping New Yorkers who experience multiple barriers to employment and a promising career, primarily due to long histories of unemployment, lack of education, training, vocational skills, histories of substance use and/or mental health and other disorders. Over the past 7 years, NADAP has had the privilege of working closely with HRA and operating 2 Career Compass programs, one in Harlem and the other in Bushwick, East Williamsburg, Brooklyn. Our Career Compass programs, as part of HRA's Career Pathways Initiative, was initially designed as an in-person services program offering cash assistance applicants and recipients an introduction to HRA and the Career Services Program, including all of its overall training, job placement, and educational offerings. In 2020, as a result of COVID, we pivoted to a fully remote and voluntary program. During that time, NADAP created an online learning management system, Learn at NADAP, where participants in all of our programs had access to more than 100 employment preparation, financial literacy, skill building, and vocational assessment workshops that were available to our clients 24/7. Currently, we are back in mandatory
Your time has expired. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You can also submit your full testimony to us within the next 72 hours.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you can submit it to testimony@council.nyc.gov. We will now call on Lynette Shaver.
Your time has begun.
Good morning. So my name is Lynette Cheever, and I am the Senior Director of Workforce Development at Project Renewal, a New York City homeless services nonprofit agency. Thank you to Chair Ayala and the City Council for convening this hearing. For over 55 years, Project Renewal has provided shelter, housing, healthcare, and employment services to New Yorkers experiencing homelessness. We are grateful to the City Council for supporting our programs. Our vocational training, job placement, and job retention services help individuals who face significant barriers to employment, including histories of substance use disorder, homelessness, justice involvement, and mental illness. These programs ensure all New Yorkers have the opportunity to support themselves in careers with growth potential. Investing in workforce development programs generates a strong return on investment for all of New York City by creating conditions for entire families to thrive. Organizations like Project Renewal need continued support from the City Council as well as agency funding from HRA and DHS in order to sustain and grow these programs. For example, our Next Step internship program serves many individuals who are HRA benefit recipients themselves. Our social services sector-based training programs like Next Step provide on-the-job training for New Yorkers interested in working in shelters or housing programs, many of whom have personally experienced homelessness. This lived experience in combination with our training helps them thrive in difficult to fill yet essential social service roles. After completing intensive vocational and life skills classes and a six-week internship, 89% of our graduates are placed in jobs, earning on average $23.74 per hour. Our culinary arts training program provides New Yorkers with a world-class culinary education and pathway to a fulfilling career. Graduates go on to secure in-demand roles in corporate kitchens, local restaurants, and for City Beat Kitchens, which is Project Renewal's social enterprise catering company that prepares food for New Yorkers in need. Including programs like this on the Jobs NYC portal would go a long way towards expanding the reach for our culinary training program. Our career advancement program provides retention.
Your time has expired. Thank you.
Sorry about that. You can submit your written testimony to testimony@council.nyc.gov, but it has to be done within the next 72 hours.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will now call our in-person panel, Daniel Giraldo and Katie Massey. You may begin. Just make sure that the red button is on.
Red?
There you go.
There it is. Thank you, Chair Ayala, members of the General Committee that were present before, and esteemed council members allowing me to testify today. My name is Daniel Hidalgo. I am one of the job development and retention specialists at GMHC's Workforce Development Program. I am here today to update you on GMHC's ongoing commitment to people living with HIV and AIDS who are ready, willing, and able to return to work despite the loss of our $400,000 per year Realizing Independence Through Support and Employment Program for RISE. Contract with the HRA, HACA, due to the fiscal year 25 New York City budget cuts. On behalf of our clients, I want to thank you for your continued advocacy for workforce development amidst this loss in funding. I know firsthand how important it is. I was also hired by GMHC through Workforce. Founded in 1982 as Gay Men's Health Crisis, GMHC, the world's first HIV and AIDS service organization, GMHC provides comprehensive service to over 5,500 New Yorkers living with and affected by HIV and AIDS every year. In 2023, more than 78% of our clients lived under the federal poverty level. This is among the reasons why our workforce development program, which supports clients living with HIV and AIDS who are ready, willing, and able to return to work, is so important. Training and linking clients to safe and stable jobs puts them on a path to financial independence, which we just heard about, and leads to better health outcomes like medication adherence and improved mental health. Since 2014, GMHC's RISE program had helped over 670 HACA clients find employment by providing culturally competent and individualized assistance, including resume building, vocational training, internships, employment and benefits counseling, and job placement and retention assistance for unemployed and underemployed workers at all stages of career readiness. Our SUNY Advanced Technology Training and Information Networking, or ATTAIN, the computer lab, enabled HACA clients to receive the practical skills training and certifications needed to succeed in the digital world, including computer skills, developer literacy.
Yeah, you don't have to wrap it.
Thank you.
You
Thank
can
you so
submit
much.
the whole thing and we'll read it, but
Okay,
you
so,
can say the last line maybe?
right. So in closing, I hope the New York City Council will continue to stand with GMHC and HACA clients we serve by advocating for the full restoration of the RISE program in the next New York City budget. Vulnerable New Yorkers living with HIV and AIDS deserve to be provided with the training and tools they need to find employment and reach economic independence. Thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. You may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Ayala. Thank you to the committee members for the opportunity to testify. My name is Katie Macy, and I'm the director of the Income Building Program at WIN, the city's largest provider of shelter and supportive housing to families with children. Last night, just under 7,000 people called WIN home, including just over 3,600 children. WIN's Income Building Program provides clients with a safe space to heal and transition from unemployment to employment. We also provide career coaching for improving job quality. As of yesterday, 77% of our clients had an active cash assistance case, meaning they are eligible for HRA's career services. However, actual job placements through HRA's career services remain low. HRA's engagement with clients, connections to opportunities, and communication with shelter providers through the job referral processes has become increasingly challenging to navigate, especially since the pandemic. At present, clients are called from restrictive phone numbers. If they miss this call, their case, and by extension, access to assistance, can be delayed. Given the high percentage of our clients with a history of domestic violence, expecting clients to answer unknown phone numbers is unrealistic and challenging. When our clients go to HRA centers to open their cases and ask about career services, they are frequently told instead to apply via Access HRA. Relying heavily on online processes is deeply impersonal and discourages engagement, especially for non-English speakers. When referred to potential opportunities, clients also receive notices via mail, when mail is unreliable for clients in shelter who frequently move around until they are deemed shelter eligible. While text to work has worked well for our clients and staff, we are concerned that HRA's communication inefficiencies can hurt our clients as benefit sanctions have recently been reinstated. We are eager to continue working with HRA Career Services to help improve communication and engagement with our clients. Thank you for the opportunity today.
Thank you. I want to acknowledge that Councilmember Riley joined us a little while ago, and I also want to acknowledge our students from City College, journalism's class, and Councilmember Abreu's district. Welcome. Hi, guys. And I will now call on our last panel, Tawaki Kamatsu.
Ms. Ayala, I'm Tawaki Kamatsu. I've testified to you repeatedly. Scott French was here after I read you an email that he sent on March 11th that was about the fact that he and other City of New York personnel illegally kept me out of a public meeting on October 25th, 2017. That would have helped me get a job. So today's hearing is about HRA's career services. So with regards to the agenda for today's hearing, I'm going to be filing papers in litigation against the city tomorrow to create job openings by having you, Mr. French, other HRA personnel fired. One of the things that the committee council stated today, or I think you stated, is that people can't record video recordings as they testify. That's a flagrant violation of First Amendment and 14th Amendment rights. Also, there's required to be a quorum for today's hearing. There's just you that I'm looking at. So the fact that there's no quorum invalidates today's hearing. That's the end of my testimony.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining us. And with that, this hearing is adjourned.